All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Guys, welcome into the Week 11 Fantasy Fallout. We are going to get right into it. Mike, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing terrific. Good to be back. Week 11 in the books. It's snowing here. I'm in Wisconsin. We got snow already. It's driving around in that. That's why we're a little late getting started today. But we're ready to rock. We're ready to go. Heading into week 12, we got 3 slates within like a set 8-day period. So it's kind of it's a very fun week of football coming up, but there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there absolutely is. I know. And because, obviously you got this next week, and then next week it's like, holiday time, Thanksgiving football, always a fun time. All right, so let's start with the Jets and Patriots from last Thursday night. Obviously, kind of what we expected, except Justin Fields actually had a decent day, but it just goes to show that the Jets will still continue to try to play hard. I think you've said that before, but still, more or less what we expected.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that end, since the fantasy fallout, the written thing was sent out, they've announced that they're going to Tyrod Taylor as their starting quarterback. Justin Fields he has struggled immensely passing the ball. Garrett Wilson also was injured in that game. So it looks like he's going to be on the shelf for a little while. So those Jets pass catchers will be tough to trust. They've got coming up this weekend, they play at the Ravens. So that's, the Ravens are kind of getting hot right now. But then after that, they've got a couple home games against the Falcons and Dolphins. And then the Jaguars and Saints after that. So they've got these next couple weeks this week is going to be tough, but then they've got about a month straight where guys like Breece Hall, Mason Taylor, potentially whoever, Adonai Mitchell or whoever kind of takes over that, the top role with Garrett Wilson out, will be some interesting guys down the stretch and heading into the fantasy playoffs. Then on the New England side, they were coming off that impressive win in Tampa Bay. And they, just got the job done again. Travion Henderson, 3 touchdowns. They play the Bengals this week, who we know, the Bengals defense, the gift that just keeps on giving, will be interesting. Ramondre Stevenson, it sounds like there's a good chance he'll be back this week. We saw, running backs against the Bengals, everybody gets a turn. Kenneth Gainwell took his turn this last week. So that'll be an interesting thing to see, but I would think that will be more of a split backfield or even leaning towards Henderson going forward. Just after that, 5 touchdowns in 2 days, or in 5 touchdowns in 5 days. Sunday, Thursday. Hard to put that genie back in the bottle.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, looking at the Dolphins and Commanders, a game that was just. This game was played in, was it Berlin? I'm not totally sure, but a lot of field goals and just not a lot of excitement overall, and just, mixed backfields, you name it. Even Gordon got some run for the Dolphins in that game and ended up taking a touchdown away from Devon Achane.
Yeah, the Dolphins, nothing new to report there on the Dolphins. Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle are, they're their primary offensive weapons. They've shown multiple times. They've shown it in those upsets they had over the Bills and the Falcons in recent weeks. Speaking of which, they've won 3 of their last 4 games, I believe. That Thursday night loss to Baltimore, that, it's an island game, so everyone, highlights it. But otherwise, they've been really good the last month. So, Mike McDaniel doing a good job kind of rallying the troops and keeping them together there. But yeah, those 2 guys are the focal points. They want to be more run-based and not rely too much on Tua. So this was a lower scoring game, and they were able to kind of stick with that. Ollie Gordon, he stole the goal line touchdown, but Achane's role is just so massive. He's used in all facets of the game, so valuable for fantasy, whatever form you play. The Commanders, Marcus Mariota is who he is. The old Dennis Green, he is who we thought he was.
Right.
he does enough to move an offense. He's not like completely lost, but he's not going to blow the doors off people really. And both these teams have Week 12 byes, so get a little reprieve. There's no real meaningful injuries. Can kind of probably move on to the next one.
Yeah, and the next one is the Panthers and the Falcons with Bryce Young, man. I just saw the headline, the franchise record in passing yards. So at least that angle, I mean, is Bryce Young, has he finally kind of shaken off the cobwebs from the early season and we're going to see a good Bryce Young, or is this just the inconsistency?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's two things. It's we saw some things from the Panthers. Bryce Young ascended. Jalen Coker played really well. His role continues to grow. Just his presence, I think their 3 wide receiver set with Coker, Teteroa McMillan, or T-Mac. He doesn't like to be called Tet. Okay. So those two, and then Xavier Legette, who also had a really nice game. 3 first and second year wide receivers who are kind of starting to play really well. The Panthers, they actually significantly increased McMillan's slot usage this week. Ran a lot of routes from the slot, and head coach Dave Canales was referencing that afterwards. That was intentional, something that they were looking to do to get him more involved, get him involved in different ways. And he had a career day. He's been their primary offensive weapon, really, outside of in the passing game, at least, all season long. And when it's that type of usage and a player with that type of talent profile, it's kind of just a matter of when, not if. And finally broke through against the Falcons there, so that was good to see. And then on the Falcons side, the wheels are falling off here. It's been talked about kind of all over, but they traded their first round pick in next year's draft to the Rams for the edge rusher they took. I believe it was Pierce, 24th overall, I think, 24th or 25th last year. But either way, so they don't own next year's pick. And right now that pick would be 8th overall. Just lost Michael Penix, their quarterback, for at least 4 games, but likely the season, if reports are true, it's his 3rd torn ACL at 25 years old. So a lot of questions there. And Drake London, the one guy that Bijan Robinson, we know he's awesome. But then Drake London, the only other guy that we can really count on. And it sounds like he has a sprained PCL. He's going to miss this week for sure. But then it's hard to say after that. Start to get a little worried there because there's a lot of talk about job security for head coach, definitely the GM. I don't see there's any way he's back next year. But you start to wonder if a guy like London with that type of injury, where like if it's a playoff team, maybe he sits a week or 2 and guts it out the rest of the way. You hear these stories about guys get surgery in February or March after the season's done, and you find out they were playing with, this thing that would debilitate, us mortals. But, in this situation now, they're sitting here at 3-7. There could get a point where you get to week 14 or 15 and they just shut him down. So a little bit of concern there. I've got him on a couple of my higher stakes teams. So I'm getting a little shaky there, but they have the Saints and Jets, their next 2 games up. So, I would say this is kind of get it together or you're done pretty quick here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Exactly. If these next 2 games against Saints and the Jets, like you mentioned, they can't put something together, things are looking bleak if they weren't already. Okay, moving on to our next game, the Bucs and the Buffalo Bills, a game that combined for a total of 76. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Josh Allen doing Josh Allen things. 3 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing touchdowns. He's done that like multiple times in his career now. Just shows, and James Cook had a big game, had like 20 fantasy points, I believe. Tyrell Shavers. The surprise was Saturday night's report that Keon Coleman was going to be inactive. And then they just played like 6 other wide receivers. Nobody really knew what to expect, but Tyrell Shavers kind of came out of nowhere and was their leading receiver. and everything else was spread around. And Allen took up 3 rushing touchdowns, so he soaked up a lot of the fantasy points. On the Bucs side, the Bills' run defense clearly one to target. I think Sean Tucker had the massive game, and I think that we're expecting Bucky Irving back in the next week or two. And really, I mean, it's another one of those, despite how a lot of it had to do with the matchup, but I think Tucker's really good. And so, they trust Rachaad White in pass situations. Tucker is a proven commodity, like he can play. And we know what Bucky Irving can do. So really, it's kind of a messy situation from a backfield. If, for people who sat on Bucky Irving through all those injuries, and now we're hoping to get like a late season jolt, my condolences, because it's not going to be that 80% workload that he had pre-injury. So, and especially with, we talked about the Falcons have fallen off. The Saints are not good. The Panthers have kind of surprised, but if you're the Bucs, they've got to feel pretty comfortable where they're at in the division. So, it'll be interesting though. Those two teams actually have to play one more time in weeks, or they have to play both times still in weeks 16 and 18. So a lot to be determined there, but a big showdown with the Rams coming up Sunday night for Tampa.
Yeah, love that analysis. All right, this next game, man, just a weird, just unexpected score. Maybe it's the West Coast traveling east. The Chargers just get absolutely clobbered by the Jags, 35-6. I don't know if you saw this coming, but any just main takeaways, observations from this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, the biggest thing was the Jaguars' backfield. As far as the teams, that outcome, the Jaguars blowing the doors off, Jacksonville is historically, it can be a tough place to play. Even, a couple of years back when they had like only a couple wins on the season, I think they knocked the Colts out of the playoffs in the last week. They beat the Bills. They were like the first team to beat the Bills all season 2 or 3 years ago, at some point when they were like 1-5 and the Bills were 6-0, and Josh Allen went in there and got, just torn up. So it just historically has been a place where teams kind of can come in and lay an egg, it seems. And I think that's kind of what happened there. The Chargers have a Week 12 bye now. Herbert was kind of banged up in the first half. He played through it for a little while, but then they shut him down in the fourth. They're expecting Omari and Hampton back after their bye week for Week 13. They're still at 7-4 in good position for the playoffs. So the bye kind of comes at a perfect time here where they can get healthier, maybe get their O-line back together, give Herbert a break, and make a run down the stretch here. And then Jacksonville, like I said, the backfield is the big thing. Rookie Bashul Tutin seemed to overtake Travis Etienne as the lead back in this game. But then he suffered a fourth quarter ankle injury, and then Etienne kind of handled the duties from there on until LaQuint Allen got a bunch of carries on the last 2 possessions once the outcome was already decided. But they combined for 150 total yards, 3 touchdowns. So we've seen it consistently kind of all year. The Jaguars' run defense is one that you can pretty successfully attack, and they will, coming out of their bye, they have a Week 12 bye, of course, like I said, but then the 2 weeks after that, they play the Raiders and Eagles. So Ashton Genty and Saquon Barkley, those could be spots those guys get back on track.
Yes, absolutely. No, that's a good shout on Genty there. So, okay. The Bears and Vikings, I mean, kind of DeAndre Swift came back. Vikings still just, both teams passed for under 200 yards. Just kind of usage-wise, anything changed to you or anything stand out?
No, I mean, the Bears, their run game has been really, really good. Ben Johnson, that's kind of a staple of his offense. Everyone knows him for being a very good coordinator, creative play caller, high-scoring offenses. But generally that, relative to a lot of other, offensive guru types that are well-known, he's very run-based in his attack. and he was able to stick with it this game. Kyle Monangai stole a goal line carry again, but DeAndre Swift is kind of the primary back there. My analysis was this is kind of his Detroit backfield all over again, with Swift as your Gibbs and Monangai as your Montgomery. Probably a step down from that in terms of how explosive the overall offense is and the talent of those players, but same sort of idea. They want to be run-based. They didn't have to take to the air too much in this game. Really, the issue here is the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy missing a bunch of throws once again. 4 out of 5 games that McCarthy has started, the offense has accumulated less than 280 total yards. So they are struggling, as Joe Namath boys struggling. But it doesn't get easier. They've got 2 road games, the Packers this Sunday, and then at the Seahawks, seeing their old friend Sam Darnold the next week. If you're a Vikings fan, that's going to be a tough couple weeks facing your bitter rivals, and then the one that got away in the next couple weeks for Vikings fans. Best of luck.
Indeed. Okay, so next game here we got the Packers Giants, and kind of some interesting stuff. I mean, obviously Green Bay is still really injured. I know you're there in Wisconsin, so I don't know if it's just the a few news stories I've seen, but a lot of criticism of Matt LaFleur from time to time, but also just Emmanuel Wilson got 11 carries to Josh Jacobs 7. I may have missed an injury from Josh Jacobs. Then on the Giants side, new coach Jameis Winston starting. Curious to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, so Josh Jacobs suffered a first half knee injury. He actually had a carry. He almost got in. He might have got in, but they ended up. I think they threw it the next play. I think that was when Malik Willis was in. But Jordan Love left, came back. He was all right, but Jacobs did not return after that second quarter injury. Emmanuel Wilson led the way the rest of the way. They didn't split things up. They've got Chris Brooks there as well, but Wilson was clearly the lead back. Like I said before, they play the Vikings this Sunday. Jacobs, it's been reported, no structural knee damage. So long-term, he'll be all right. They say potentially he could play this week. But also, I believe they play on Thanksgiving as well. They play the Lions on Thanksgiving. So they have 2 games in 5 days. My guess would be they let Jacobs rest this Sunday against the Vikings. They have him play in that showdown with the Lions the following week. So I think Emmanuel Wilson, he'll be a guy you'll definitely want to start going forward. But the Packers, their schedule, they've got Vikings, Lions, and then they go Bears, Broncos, Bears, Ravens, Vikings. So it's going to be a grueling stretch for the Packers. They snuck this one out against Jameis Winston. So, they're going to have to, they're still battling injuries, and kind of even in this win, they played, I think you would say, below their standards or expectations for, I guess, who they and their fans, the type of team that they think they are. Other than that, the Giants had a very run-based attack. It was very windy in this game. I believe there weren't any field goals even attempted, and a couple extra points were missed. But they leaned on their running game. Tyrone Tracy had a really nice game. I think he's in for a nice end to the season. Devin Singletary stole a couple goal line touchdowns, so he'll be a thorn in the side, but Tracy's the one you want to own there. And then, like I said, just with the way this one played out, they were able to play that way. But they play the Lions this Sunday, and we're gonna get the fun Jameis in this one. So excited to see that play out, especially if they can get Darius Slayton back on the field, who, he missed this game with a hamstring injury. There's a chance with buys and whatnot that somebody might have dropped Darius Slayton in your leagues. And if they did, definitely go pick him up, because he'll be the beneficiary of some Jameis Winston YOLO targets downfield.
Hey man, fun Jameis. That's always something we like. Okay, next one here, the Pittsburgh beating Cincinnati 34-12. Like you said, man, the Cincinnati run defense, just the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, and the Steelers defense, there was a lot of excitement around this rematch because such an exciting game the first time these teams played on Thursday night, and it turned into a shootout. But the Steelers defense has been playing really, really well recently. They shut down the Colts. The most that they gave the Colts the most fits that they've had all season, really. And then they lost to the Chargers in week 10. But they mostly held the Chargers offense in check in that game. And then the Bengals, who kind of had been rolling as well, they totally stifled them. So really kind of coming into their own. This week they play the Bears. So that'll be an interesting one. We talked about the Bears dynamics before. Jaylen Warren, he banged up his ankle he got awkwardly tackled and then didn't really play much the rest of the game. So Kenneth Gainwell, who stole an early touchdown and then ended up getting most of the work down the stretch, he had a huge game. But it sounds like Warren's okay and probably will play in this game against the Bears defense that has been pretty giving. And DK Metcalf kind of had another down game, but I think he's in store to kind of get back on track this week. He's obviously been disappointing for most of the season. And then Aaron Rodgers, of course, broke his hand or wrist or something. So he's going to be out a week or two. It's his left hand, and it doesn't sound too serious. But, you still got to be able to take snaps and stuff. It's not just throwing the ball. So it'll be something that he'll have to figure out. And then on the Bengals side, of course, Joe Burrow's practice window is open, so he could come back this week or next week potentially. They play on Thanksgiving as well. So, interesting dynamic there. They've got 2 games in 5 days, one of them against the Ravens. But they're kind of at make or break point in their season, now sitting at 3-7. That was a ugly loss coming off their bye week. Joe Flacco, he's fun for a little bit, but at some point he turns back into a pumpkin. He is what he is. He's 41 years old and makes like $5 million a year. Like there's a reason he's not starting, that you were able to acquire him for cheap. But without Jamar Chase, obviously T. Higgins, should have a massive role. Chase Brown had a massive role without Samaje Perine on the field. But yeah, the Bengals are, they're a team that we always want to be targeting and aware of who they're facing because, it seems like teams wake up and score 30 points against them. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I was muted. We'll keep an eye on them. Okay, Houston Texans, Tennessee Titans, kind of a snooze fest. Anything that kind of stood out to you here that's new?
Not really. I mean, the Texans, I believe, have won like 3 of their last 4. Woody Marks had 19 touches, only 3 for Nick Chubb. It was disappointing. It was what we were hoping for because he had played. There was signal, and he had played a lot the week before. But on paper, it looked like a really good matchup. And then he didn't really do much with it, but the usage stuck. So that's the thing we should focus on. And Marks is a guy who definitely should be a flex or potentially an RB2 consideration weekly. The Titans coming out of their bye as well, they got Jeffrey Simmons back. Their defense has actually been playing pretty decent. They started off the year, they were just really, really bad. Sometimes you look at like the opponent rank or how a defense has done against a certain position and usually those stats that you'll see on your fantasy app or whatever are for the season, but they've been playing a lot better than what those numbers would say for the season. So just something to keep in mind. It's no longer a lock and load your guys against the Titans.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point to consider. Okay, the Niners and the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously you had big games from really both teams on. This was kind of had all the attention in the DFS world over the weekend. So what are your thoughts on this game and these two offenses?
Yeah, I mean, the 49ers, this is the first time since week 1 they played 10 snaps at full strength. And this was the first time that they've had Brock Purdy, CMC, Kittle, Juwan Jennings, and Ricky Pearsall all on the field together. And they, did not disappoint. 40-plus points, got the job done. And then the Niners defense, once again, just kind of struggles. I mean, they're depleted. So I think the 49ers are a place that we could just chase for fantasy goodness down the stretch here, because they've got a really talented offense and a really beat up defense. And that's, it's similar to what we saw down the stretch last year with the Lions, where you just have, a great offensive play caller, talented offense, and a defense that is just a shell of itself. And that, that's the type of situation we want to consistently be attacking in all areas of fantasy football.
Yep, absolutely. What about the Cardinals? Any thoughts on them on just kind of going forward? I mean, obviously 57 pass attempts, the receiving core really ate.
Yeah, I mean, Trey McBride just has been dominant, without Kyler Murray. And then Greg Dortch and Michael Wilson, they played well as well. I believe Jacoby Brissett set an NFL record for completions with 47 completions in this game. So just a massive, massive game there. The game script isn't always going to go like that. They play the Jaguars, I believe, this week. And Jacksonville doesn't have quite the same firepower. They're not the well-oiled machine San Francisco is. So it might not turn into that sort of thing. And we saw the Jaguars defense really lock down the Chargers just last week. So, by far not an automatic that they'll hum at that level like they did against the 49ers defense. But certainly, they can't really run the ball that well. Their defense is not terrible, but not great. And, that it kind of just leads to a situation where you're going to have a lot of pass attempts. And again, that, is another spot where you can find a lot of good stuff for fantasy.
Without a doubt. The Seahawks and the Rams, a matchup of two of the premier teams in the NFL, and Rams ended up winning that one in a pretty low-scoring game. I think, I forget if this was their first or second matchup of the year, but divisional matchups sometimes can be lower scoring than expected. And yes, 4 interceptions for Sam Darnold. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, some solace for Vikings fans who are feeling pretty bad about the J.J. McCarthy over Sam Darnold decision, as they saw Darnold it's the worst we've seen him look since he played the Rams last year in the playoffs. So, from that standpoint, kind of a reminder of why the Vikings made the decision they did. He did make some nice throws, but also a couple things. They've been a low volume, high efficiency passing offense. Jackson Smith-Njigba went over 100 yards. He's been great as well, but the Rams probably kind of highlighted some things in terms of what other defenses can do to Seattle to slow them down. Also just showed why the Seahawks have been a low pass volume team, despite, a lot of times teams that don't throw a lot, but they're really successful when they do throw. Fans and people will be like, well, why don't they just throw more? And usually there's a reason. So, you kind of saw that play out there. If he's getting up into 35 pass attempt range, probably not good for Seattle. Kenneth Walker had a nice game. He actually had another touchdown called back, but he had 111 total yards and scored a touchdown. I kind of think down the stretch, he's been outplaying Zach Charbonnet. So he's a guy I think, from DFS could be a spot we can be ahead on, as his salary is still low. And for season-long leagues, he's a guy I'd trust down the stretch.
Oh, yeah, I like that, especially as playoffs approach. Baltimore, Cleveland. Baltimore, like you said, they've been hot, won 4 in a row. Just kind of a defensive struggle in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns defense is really, really good. There was weather again in this one. It was cold. It was very, very windy. So there wasn't a whole lot going on there. The Browns actually scored a touchdown on a pass. Lamar Jackson threw a pass to a running back. It hit him, bounced in the air. Browns ran it back for a touchdown. So that kind of let Cleveland sit on their lead and rely on their defense. Eventually, the Ravens kind of broke through. Derrick Henry had a touchdown run. Mark Andrews that was an awesome play call. Did you see it? The fake tush push?
I did not. Oh, really? Yeah. That
Andrews, they did it. It was like 4th and 1 from like the 35, and they lined up for the tush push. and he spun out of it and took off, and he went 30 yards for a touchdown or whatever.
That is brilliant.
So that was a pretty cool play to watch. But yeah, I mean, two good defenses. Kind of seeing the Ravens, they're kind of looking a little bit like the Ravens we used to know before the last couple of years. Defense is playing pretty well, kind of grinding out some wins. So that'll be an interesting dynamic to see if they turn back into the high flying team. But at 5-5, they've got the Jets and the Bengals. They've got 3 straight home games against the Jets, Bengals, and Steelers coming up the next 3 weeks. So the world is their oyster. Lamar Jackson can kind of take back control of the AFC North over that time period. And then for Cleveland, like I said, the way the game script went, they just were basically trying to run the clock and rely on their defense. But they play the Raiders this week, and Shedeur Sanders will be starting. So a lot of people get their wish and get to see him out on the field. So that'll, I'm sure, be one that we'll be talking about next week.
Without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. Okay. Denver KC. I mean, again, another pretty low scoring game. What were your thoughts with this one?
Yeah, so another grinded out. Teams are playing to win. They're, not wanting to give the other team the upper hand. So kind of a conservatively played game, kind of close to the vest, which makes sense because they're 2 well-coached teams and 2 pretty good defenses. For Denver, I thought it was interesting. J.K. Dobbins is out for the year with his foot injury. So R.J. Harvey handled 11 of 17 running back opportunities. It was kind of a tough matchup and a weird game script. But Jaleel McLaughlin, he stole. He had a touchdown in the game. So I started Harvey in a lot of places. So that was kind of frustrating. But I do think that he's a talented guy who he's clearly their top option in the backfield, played most of the game. He's going to have some nice games down the stretch for Denver. Potentially, they've got a bye coming up this week. Yeah, they're on bye this week in week 12. But then they play the Commanders and Raiders the next 2 games after that. And I think Harvey will be a guy that probably has his breakouts during that time. And then on the Chiefs side, they're at 5-5, so it's kind of desperation time. It's going to be now or never going forward for them. It is not an easy schedule down the stretch for them, but their running game has basically been a 0. I'll be interested to see if they turn to the rookie Brashard Smith, who is more explosive than anyone they've had running the ball for him. But time will tell, and that Andy Reid gets paid more than me.
Yeah. Okay. Final game here, Lions and the Eagles. And I mean, this is a hot take, but now that Ben Johnson is gone, is the Lions offense starting to show cracks with them just scoring, 9 points, man. Even against the Eagles defense, you would think this vaunted offense would do a little better than that, but it was a road game.
Yeah. I think the Eagles defense is just really, really good. Their last 3 games, they struggled against the Eagles. They scored seemingly at will against the Commanders, 44 points, and it felt like it could have been more. Yeah. They struggled a little bit against Brian Flores the week before in that game that they lost. I think that they're just turning into a real matchup-dependent team. And over the next 4 weeks, they play the Giants this week, and they're probably going to score 40 points again. And then they play the Packers the next week. Green Bay kind of shut them down last time, but they play on Thanksgiving, short week, so that'll be interesting. Then they play the Cowboys, probably score 40 points in that game. I think it's, we also have Jared Goff, this massive home road or indoor-outdoor splits, and he plays mostly indoor games the rest of the season. They have, 4 or 5? 5 of their last 7 games are indoors. One of them that's not is week 18 in Chicago, which is after most people's fantasy seasons. So, I would think, it's very concerning for like their playoff outlook from a real life standpoint, but I have no concerns about Lions players from a fantasy standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. Jahmyr Gibbs.
And the Eagles didn't look great.
Yeah.
But they play the Cowboys this week. So everybody Another everybody gets to eat situation.
Get right spot. That's right. Awesome. Mike, thanks for your time as always, man. Guys, thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Fallout. We will catch you around the same time, same place next week. Mike, I appreciate your time as always.
Absolutely. Same time.
All right. We'll see you guys.